into, I'm into figures, though better photos of you. I never know, you tell me go for good, want to do I should.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm Zara if you're new here. I hope you're all doing amazing. Today is a tutorial on how to sew a very basic bikini. So this tutorial is for sewing beginners or people who never worked with swimwear fabrics before. So this intro will be a bit longer, I'm sorry, but when I did my research before starting to tackle this project, I had questions and I figured that you may have the same questions, so I thought that it could be helpful before we jump into the tutorial that I just share with you some of my experiences and what really helped me to sew swimwear fabrics. So let's do this. First of all, you of course need a fabric that is suitable for swimwear, and this is typically a 4-way stretch material. As you can see here, it's stretchy in every direction. This is very important. This is a lycra and I got this on Etsy, and I will link all the fabrics down below. And I went down a rabbit hole of floral prints. As you can see here, this is also a rib fabric. Super cute. And I actually got another rib fabric, and I used this for the very first bikini I actually sewed 2 weeks ago. And I somehow, I don't know, I somehow went wrong with the pattern and I ended up with this major underboob action. And I mean, if you're an underboob girl, if you love a good underboob moment, go ahead girl, rock this. But I'm not that cool girl, vibey girl, tanned Pinterest chick that wears her underboobs. It's just not for me, so I decided to not upload this tutorial, so I'm sorry. Or actually not sorry. So this is the fabric I got, and I'm super excited to sew more bikinis out of the other fabrics. And then you will need elastic, and I know there are elastics out there that are particularly for swimwear, but I couldn't get my hands on them, so I just used my regular elastic and it worked just fine, because I don't want to sell swimwear, I just want to use it for my personal pleasure. And then you also need a cutter. I found that regular fabric scissors don't work that well with lycra, so this really helps. And make sure to get some spare extra blades, because I experienced that you go through quite some blades during this process. Yes, this is this. And then you also, I also found that it helped to switch my presser foot, which is normally typically out of metal, to a non-stick presser foot. And this is not made of Teflon. I know there are some that are made out of Teflon. This is also fine. This is made of plastic, and it got this really cute small roll underneath. So it really helped to transport the fabric better, so that the foot doesn't stick to the fabric or the fabric to the foot. I don't know. Anyway, this helped. And then you don't need a serger for this. A sewing machine works just fine, but you should get yourself some super stretch needles. This is crucial. You can't do it without super stretch needles. It will poke holes in the fabric and you will get like a really bad result. So super stretch needles are a thing. And so yeah, this is it for the material you need. And now another tip, I first of all sat down and tried different settings, because every fabric is different and every sewing machine is different. So what worked for me may not work for you, so take your time. What I did was I just cut off these little edges on my fabric, these weird edges, and tried different stitches on them, different thread tensions, etc., until I had the settings that worked perfectly. And I found that the normal boring zigzag stitch worked just fine. It was actually the best stitch for me to go, although I have a couple of stretch stitches on my sewing machine, but the normal regular zigzag stitch just was it. And I also found it very helpful to lower the thread tension, so I did that as well. So yeah, this is these are my little tips and tricks. If you want to recreate this and you recreate this and you're done recreating this, let me know in the comments. I'd love to see your finished results, and yeah, let me know in general your experiences with swimwear fabrics and sewing bikinis or bathing suits. I'd love to know, so just feel free to comment down below. And for now, let's say I stop talking and let's jump into the tutorial. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I'd really appreciate it if you do, and leave some love and a like if you like this video, obviously. And yeah, tschüss, und yeah, I talk to you soon. Okay, first off, I'd like to mention that there are patterns you can download, but since I don't have a printer, I had to make my pattern myself, and I did this by taking the measurement from under my bigger boob as well as the measurement from over my bigger boob, if that makes sense. Okay, and then I went in and transferred these measurements onto a piece of paper, and of course I added a couple of centimeters for seam allowance. And yeah, this is quite self-explanatory. Here I'm just drawing in the measurement from over my boob, and the bottom line is the measurement from underneath my boob. And what I then did was I went in and curved the bottom line just a bit, so everything will fit nicer in the end. And then I cut off the tip of the pattern to provide an opening for the straps. And I forgot to mention that I not only added seam allowance but also allowance for a tunnel, so that in the end our straps will fit inside the cup. And yeah, for the bikini bottom, I just used an old pair of bikini bottoms, and I just traced the shape onto a piece of wrapping paper, and I just went in and added a bit of allowance, of course seam allowance, but also I made the pattern a bit bigger because the bottoms, yeah, they didn't fit me that well anymore, so I just made my bottoms a bit bigger. And then I did basically the same for the front. As you can see here, just adding some allowance, and after that I went in and created a V shape because I wanted a nice little V shape in the front. This is what I'm doing here. You can basically really make any shape you like. Whatever your heart desires, you can do it. And then I just put my patterns on top of my fabric and started to cut everything out. And the triangle cup pattern I of course cut out 4 times because I didn't have a lining fabric. I just used the good fabric as shell fabric and lining fabric. And then I put my cups right sides facing and clipped everything in place and sewed along the edges, like on the bottom and the sides, but leaving like 2 centimeters on the bottom on the sides to provide an opening for the tunnel we will sew later. And then I did the same for the bottoms, laid the back pieces right sides kissing, pinned them and sewed all the long sides, and also the same for the front pieces. And I also went in and marked the the place where I would have to stop sewing, so that again we will have in the end an opening to put our straps through. And this is what this looked like. And of course I didn't sew the top bit closed because we will need to put our strap inside. And this is what I was telling you in the beginning. Here is my presser foot, and my super stretch needle. I worked with a low thread tension, a zigzag stitch on medium length and width. I sewed all my edges with my serger except for one side. This is the V part of my front piece of my bottoms, because I found that I had more control over my seam by doing it on the sewing machine, and I wanted to create a sharp V, so this is my way to go. If you're a bit more familiar with working with a serger, you of course can create your V shape with a serger as well. And then I went in and cut out 2 cm wide strap pieces, which I sewed close on 2 sides, one short side, and then of course all along the long side, of course right sides kissing, and I will show you in a second how I turned my straps. Since I don't have a strap turner, I had to get creative, and for turning my straps I used a metal drinking straw as well as a chopstick and a very fine paintbrush. And as you can see here, I'm just putting my strap over my metal drinking straw, and then I pushed the brush with the not so sharp side into the drinking straw and pushed again with the chopstick. This is just because the chopstick wouldn't go all the way through the straw. And yeah, then on the other end you can see your brush poking through, and you're just pushing the fabric over the metal straw and pulling on the other side, and this is how you can turn very easily a strap. After that was done, I went in and sewed elastics on every seam I just created. As you can see here, again, I'm leaving the openings on both sides of the triangle cups open, and I cut my elastic on an angle, as you can see here, because it's just nicer when you turn your cup, it looks nicer. And I clipped it in place and sewed over it with my sewing machine, actually, because I just again felt that I had more control. Because sometimes the elastic is sliding and slipping, and yeah, this worked very well. I then went in and put my straps through the top opening of my cups, as you can see here, and pinned it in place and sewed everything securely in place. And after that I could flip my cup inside out, and yeah, I think it looks already pretty good. After that I went in and cleaned the openings, because as you can see here, there's of course seam allowance inside, and this is poking out, so I'm pushing it back inside of the opening and then pinning it, so that afterwards I can sew with straight stitch a tunnel, as you will see in a second. And as I said, I'm sewing this tunnel with a straight stitch because you won't be stretching your cup piece, I guess. Yeah. And yes, after that was done, I could take a safety pin and put my very long strap through my cups. After that, I sewed elastics like I did with my cups on every seam I just created on my bottoms, front and back, as you can see here, and sewed everything with a zigzag stitch. And for the V part, one exception, again, I cut the elastic in 2 pieces, as you can see here, again on an angle, and I went in with my zigzag stitch and sewed not one long seam. I stopped in the middle and then created another seam because that way I could make sure that the V is nice and sharp. Yeah, and after this is done, you turn your front piece like so, and you put it inside your bottom piece, as you can see here, and line up both sides as well as the crotch area. And just take your time here, make sure that nothing is twisted or turned, because you will regret that. So take your time, make sure everything is nice and aligned. And yeah, after that you pin the sides as well as the crotch area and sew them close. Except for a little opening you want to leave in the crotch area so that you have an opening to turn everything inside out. Which is what I'm doing here. I turned my bottoms inside out, and everything that was left to do was to hand sew the opening closed, and this is it, you guys. This is my triangle bikini.
I'm into figures, though better photos of you. I never know. Tell me go for good, want to do I should.